Hello everybody, welcome to another Galactic Gaming YouTube video, and today we are looking at my Quantum Shotgun theme build on the Terran Eagle Pilot Raider. This is a build that maximizes the amount of Quantum Torpedo spreads that I can output. So, let me show you the build now, and as you can see, all my forward weapons are just variants of Quantum Torpedo launchers. I tried to maximize the amount of Thoron Quantum Torpedo launchers because they have the same visuals as regular Quantum Torpedoes, plus they also have a chance to deal extra radiation damage. And this one's actually a wide-angle quantum torpedo launcher which you can get from any tier 6 version of the Sovereign class, and I just use this because I had it upgraded to Mark 15, and upgrading does get fairly expensive. Oh, I should probably mention that you can get Thoron-infused quantum projectiles from the Delta Alliance Reputation store. You can get the torpedoes, and you can also get the mines, which I am using in the aft weapon as well. For my core gear, I'm using the Protomatter Deflector from the General Fleet Colony, the prevailing competitive impulse engines from the competitive reputation, and I'm also using the Discovery Shield and Discovery Warp Core, which allows me to gain access to the two-piece, which gives me additional hull regeneration, which is kind of important on a ship as squishy as the Terran Eagle Pilot Raider. And you can get both of those from the Discovery reputation. For the experimental weapon, I was going to use Subspace Depth Charge, which comes off of this ship, the Terran Eagle Pilot Raider, because it's supposed to be the only experimental weapon that can fire underneath an enhanced battle cloak. However, in my testing, I actually found that there's actually a second experimental weapon which does the same. The Gold-type Psionic Resonator, which comes from the Cyclone Intel Patrol Escort, which is really handy because this is actually the second most powerful experimental weapon that you can get in the game, and the most powerful one you can get on an account unlock. And what this does is just fires off a beam of psionic damage, and you can actually deal even more psionic damage by flanking, which you should already be doing. Especially on this ship, since this ship is a raider, it already comes with raider flanking, which deals, you guessed it, even more flanking damage. That was annoying, the game just crashed. Anyway, in my device slots, first I got the Flagship Distress Frequency Transponder, which allows me to summon in my faction's flagship every time I use fleet support. Advanced Kinetic Amplifiers, which you can get from the R&D thing. You can also get it off the exchange. This just gives me bonus projectile damage and crit severity. The Kobayashi Maru Transponder, which gives me random buffs every so often. And Reactive Armor Catalyst, because this is a very squishy ship, I'm going to need all the heals that I can get off of this. In my Universal consoles, first I got opening salvo from the Titan Science Destroyer, and that Titan Science Destroyer was actually gifted to me by Mystic Tree, so thank you very much for that. And what this console does is it gives me some pretty nice passives, actually. Bonus, not bonus, but Starship Exotic Particle Generators and Starship Rapid Specialization, which improves my critical hit chance of my weapons. What this console does when I activate it, it just fires off a spread of quantum torpedoes every 2 or 3 seconds, and just does a bunch of kinetic damage. It also knocks target subsystems offline for 5.5 seconds. That includes shields, so if I use this as the title says, an opening salvo, then follow my other quantum torpedoes, this console can actually help me deal a pretty decent amount of damage. And next I've got Swarmer Matrix, which you can get from the Infinity boxes, and I've only got this here for the plus 50 projectile weapon training, which actually is pretty decent. In my engineering consoles, first I've got Ordnance Accelerator, which you can get from the Gamma Reputation. I'm just using it for the mine recharge speed and the extra projectile weapon damage, although that phaser damage would be pretty neat if I wasn't using this on a torpedo build. And then I've got Quantum Warhead module, which comes from the Valiant, which is a tier 6 version of the Defiant. And this just fires off a burst of quantum torpedoes that actually has some pretty decent one hits. I've seen 500k one hits from this before. Next, I have multi-directional artillery barrage, which comes from the Terran Lexington Dreadnought cruiser, and this just fires off quantum torpedoes in every freaking direction. It's just torpedoes all over the place. It's so visually satisfying. This also does give me a useful maximum hull capacity buff, and also 20% all damage from projectile weapons is also very helpful. And next I've got Domino, which you can get from the Bajoran Interceptor, which you can get from the Epic Phoenix store now. And usually you would want this on an energy weapon build because it does give that firing cycle haste. But however, if you look very closely, oh, that's a little rude, but if you look very closely, you'll also notice plus 100% recharge speed for torpedo weapons whenever I have this console active. That's going to help me shoot off a heck ton of torpedoes whenever I have this up. And then I've got variable auto-targeting armor, which comes from the Arbiter battle cruiser. And this doesn't fire off quantum torpedoes. However, the projectiles it does fire off do fire off quantum torpedoes. So I feel like that suits the theme well enough. And then I have Covert Warhead module, which comes off from this ship, the Terran Eagle Pilot Raider. And apart from the projectile weapon damage buff, the only reason I have it on here is to reduce the shared cooldown of my torpedoes to 0.5 seconds, because this ship has pilot maneuvers, because this is a pilot ship. And filling up the entirety of my tacticons consoles, I just have a mix of vulnerability locators and exploiters, all of which for the torpedo modifier, because this is the torpedo build, so I'm not going to get anything out of ISO mags. In my specializations, first I'm running Temporal Operative Primary to gain access to Entropic Rider and also Continuity, which gives me extra survivability. And I'm running Miracle Worker Secondary to gain access to the passive 50% maximum hold regeneration because, as I said, squishy ship, need everything I could get. In my personal space traits, first I got Superior Projectile Training, which gives me bonus projectile weapon damage. You can actually get regular projectile training from leveling up, but you can get superior version from the Fleet K13 fleet holding. Next you got Context of the Kings, which gives me either damage resistance rating or bonus damage depending whether I took damage in the last second or not. Fleet Coordinator, which gives me bonus or damage per team member, which includes yourself. Resonating Payload Modification, which debuffs the enemy's physical and kinetic damage resistance rating for 20 seconds. A Good Day to Die, which allows me to use Go Down firing at any hull integrity instead of being literally dead. Intelligence Agent Attaché, which allows me to recharge my captain's abilities every time I get a critical strike on my weapons. Adaptive Offense to buff that critical strike chance. It also turns into crit severity buff at the back. Unconventional Systems, whenever I use a control bridges officer ability, it reduces my universal console cooldown. Terran Targeting Systems for the extra crit severity. And self-modulating fire for the extra shield penetration buff whenever I get a critical hit. For my starship traits first, I got Stealth Torpedo Bomber, which comes from this ship, the Terran Eagle Pilot Raider. Whenever I'm cloaked or I use pilot maneuvers, I gain stacks of Stealth Torpedo Bomber, and when I reach 10 stacks, I clear all those stacks and I gain Torpedo Spread too. Next, I have the Ruin of Our Enemies from the D7 Miracle Worker Flight Deck Carrier. Basically, bonus or damage for 20 seconds whenever I defeat a foe, but that effect can actually stack up to 100 times. And, oh yeah, the bonus recharge time to bridge officer abilities in every 5th defeat, that's really unnecessary. Onboard Dilithium Recrystallizer, which you can get from the Infinity boxes. Using an engineering ability, applies power to subsystems release and gives me bonus damage for max subsystems. This would be better if I had enhanced plasma manifold from the tier 1 Oberth, but I don't really have the room for that. Entwined Tactical Matrices, which comes from the Gagarin Miracle Worker Battle Cruiser, and I also think the Kuj as well, from the Klingon faction. Whenever I activate Torpedo Spread, it applies Fire at Will and Scatter Volley 1, that's not really helpful. But whenever I activate Fire at Will or Scatter Volley, it applies to me Torpedo Spread 1, so that's more Torpedo Spreads. I've got Improved Photonic Officer, which I wouldn't really be using on this build, but it also does give me bonus hull healing and shield healing, so that also is helpful. Plus, it allows my Photonic Officer to always be up 100% of the time. Thirst for Battle, which comes from the legendary Border Skew, using cannon firing modes or a cloak applies speed buffs and also increased damage, which includes torpedoes. Honestly, this trait is, I would almost call this a must-have for any cannon scatter volley build, but this is also pretty handy for torpedo builds if you have an enhanced battle cloak. And finally, I've got Adapted Tactical Algorithms, which comes from the Cyclone Intel Patrol Escort. Using a certain specialization triggers more abilities, and basically what I'm doing at the start of each match is using Concentrate Firepower, which allows me to have a permanent plus 40% increased damage and 20% hull capacity. Oh wait, no, it's not permanent, it's only for 7 seconds. Oh, I didn't even know that. Huh. This is why you need to read, people. Don't be like me being an idiot. Read the starship traits. In my space reputations, first I've got Torpedo Pre-Fire Sequence, which gives me bonus torpedo damage, Precision for the extra crit hit chance, Advanced Targeting Systems for the extra crit severity, Omega Kinetic Shearing, which deals 10% of my outgoing damage as a damage over time, which is only procced from torpedoes, is actually pretty decent. And finally, Tyler's duality to give me extra crit chance based on my current hull capacity. I'm not getting much out of that, but it's better than nothing. In my bridge officer stations, gem targeting sensors, scramble sensors, gravity well, tractor beam, emit unstable warp bubble, and clean getaway are all triggering unconventional systems. I've got deploy construction shuttle wing to give me a pretty decent heal over time. I actually use this on quite a few of my builds for survivability. It's pretty decent. Concentrate firepower 3, which just allows me to keep firing off torpedo or higher yields. I know this is a torpedo spread build, but really, if you're on a torpedo build, you want to be using this bridge officer ability, because honestly, it's just that good. I've got beam fire at will to be able to trigger what do you call it, entwined tactical matrices. I've also got photonic officer here to trigger improved photonic officer and also to recharge my bridge officer cooldowns. I've got chemocyte laced weaponry, which gives me extra radiation damage on my weapons. I've got mine dispersal pattern beta to buff my thoron infused mines. Torpedo spread 3, because this is a torpedo spread build, it makes sense to have the highest level torpedo spread possible. In my duty officers, I've got 3 projectile weapons officers, which are all reducing the recharge times for my torpedoes. 2 of them are also giving me increased damage versus Archie, which is okay, I guess. 29 to 47, every time I activate a science bridge officer ability, I have a chance to max out my power levels for 5 seconds, which may feed into onboard dilithium recrystallizer. Brad Boimler, which gives me toxic clouds from torpedoes, is not doing too much damage, but he's decent. And Hizra, which gives me a chance to create aftershock gravity wells, which is really more useful on a science build, and I just put this here because I really didn't know what else to put. So, now that I've explained how exactly this build works, let me take it through a run of Nitro and I'll explain the parts to you. Stay tuned!
Well fought. Worth Martin's on his way.
90k DPS. That's actually kind of impressive considering my SROs aren't actually applying their buffs properly. Actually, looking at the past shows that the highest damage dealer is actually the quantum armament projectiles, which is from the Arbiter battlecruiser. Not bad for a tier 5 console. But what we're looking at here is mainly quantity over quality. And as you look down here and you count up all of the projectile attacks, we end up coming up to 368 projectile attacks over the span of nearly 2.5 minutes. That is a lot of attacks. I'm really impressed with the amount of attacks the team could output. So, yeah, a lot of torpedoes. Got what I wanted for the build. Perfect. So that was my quantum shotgun theme build. Honestly, I've been having a lot of fun flying this ship around and this build in particular. And honestly, I'm really starting to think that you guys are going to really enjoy it too. So tell me what you thought of this video in the comments. Remember to like, subscribe if you really want to. It would mean the world to me. Anyway, my name's Galactic Gaming. Thank you so much for watching, and stay cute. I'll catch you later. Bye bye!